Memphis track boy, let's go.
My Colorado swing. My Colorado swing. My Colorado swing.
Welcome into a new BuffStampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com on the 24/7 Sports Network, joined by our football analyst, William Gardner. William, we went a day later instead of Sunday. It was Mother's Day yesterday, so we did the right thing. We delayed this podcast by one day.
I don't know about you, man. I was at a pool party with a teenage kid, taking my shirt off and jumping in the pool.
You better put that in. You better put that in context there.
Nobody knows what I'm talking. No, you put it in context. You brought it up.
Yeah, before we hit record, obviously, your affinity for Dan Lanning had me laughing watching the announcement where he jumped into the pool with a recruit whose father says, actually, let's push pause here. We're not quite committed to Oregon, so kind of a strange deal. And you've had many controversial things. I wasn't going to lead with Dan Lanning in this show, but I feel like we got to explain that one a little bit.
Yeah, I just thought it was weird looking. It's like he's like the only adult. I don't know. They had a bunch of pretty girls around the pool. I don't know what the hell the situation was or whatever, but it just seemed weird to me.
What's more important, though, for this podcast is what Colorado's doing, and they went all out the past couple weekends. Two really star-studded groups rolling through Boulder. What's tough here, William, is that for most of these recruits, this was either their first or second official visit, and so there's kind of this desire, I think, as a Colorado fan, to get a bunch of commits right now. But when you're trying to battle some of the other top Power 4 programs in the country for these top recruits, you've got to be a little bit more patient in that sense. I think Colorado could easily just go out there and start pulling in commitments from guys, but there's not this, number one, this need to sign 25 guys out of the prep ranks. They might sign more this year, but there's more of a, again, kind of a quality over quantity with high school recruiting that we're still seeing in year 3 of Coach Prime.
Yeah, I think, and I'm going to push back on that thing. Making fun of Dan Lanning is always a top priority on this podcast.
Okay.
As long as I'm on it, pal. Because I got knuckles. My knuckles got to go somewhere. If it ain't Dan, could be somebody else. Anyway, I think it's a little. I think. I don't know. I gotta say, I feel like it was the latest transfer portal period, not that it's over, felt disappointing to me. And I still feel like we got serious question marks of running back and linebacker. Maybe not serious, but question marks of running back and linebacker. Other people got other issues at other spots, but I don't know. It just felt a little, and I guess it's probably in relation to what we've seen last year, maybe, and maybe we're getting spoiled, I guess. But I think people want to see something happen with some of these recruits because we're waiting to see something happen with some of the transfers. And I don't know. We're getting nervous. We're CU fans. We've been kicked in the area down there too many times over the last 10 years to really believe it's true yet. So. I don't know.
I think this is a fair way to put it, William, is that it was pretty clear the first 5 transfer windows of Coach Prime, and certainly the first one was rushed, but right, I mean that was a time period when Jimmy Horn type guys were committing. But each of those first 5 transfer cycles, I think you look at what left, what came in, and you'd say really definitively that this football team got better. This time, I think you have to have a genuine conversation about this spring transfer window when you've lost some guys. Now, it's not far off, though. It's an elite running back and maybe a top-notch linebacker away from really making you feel great about this roster. But it is those couple areas that you talked about that make you a little uneasy going into these summer months.
Yeah, and I guess the difference is, as you said, I would emphasize again that I think in the previous years, it was so clearly better. This time, I think we might be better, but it's incremental. You know what I mean? and at some point you're going to get so good that it can't get better each time. Does that make sense? It's like, when you're a top 5 team and you're loaded with guys, it's hard to get better every single portal, but we still have room to go up on that. And so I was hoping for a little more, but like you said, we get that one running back and we get that one more linebacker guy, and maybe we're there, but.
Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support, but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com. William, everybody that listens to our podcast knows that we love the Hungry Toad. They've been bringing a taste of England to Boulder since 1991. At the Hungry Toad, they serve up hearty homemade fare from their scratch kitchen paired with a brilliant selection of British beers. They're the perfect spot for friends and family to gather, relax, and enjoy the warm, welcoming atmosphere. If you're mad for football, so are they. Whether it's the American gridiron or European footy, they proudly support CU football and CU women's soccer. The Hungry Toad, Boulder's local pub that's not on Pearl Street. Head to 2543 Broadway in Boulder.
And you know what? Hans Serrata don't take no whoopings either. He hands them out. How's that for a second?
I love it. I love it.
What's exciting about this group of visitors is how highly rated they are, and then that follows from the weekend before was also the same way, and so I think it's exciting. I think we need to. I think people are waiting to see us close on some of these guys and make that happen too. So I don't know, lot of good players on the. I'm just looking at the last 2 weeks of all the guys that came through, and it's like the lowest rated guy. Is an 88 and an 87, which 3 years ago we've been, wow, that guy's great.
He would have probably headlined the class, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because now you've got to keep recruiting these guys while they're taking other visits, and I don't think every recruit is this way, but sometimes when you're younger, there's kind of this there's more of a recency bias of just like, what is the last shiny thing I saw? And that's maybe the one concern I would have with having so many of these guys early on campus. But if that's your opportunity to get them on campus, you got to shoot your shot when it's available, right?
But I think it also helps when you have a big group of really highly rated guys, and then sometimes they bond with each other, and
it's true.
and they're like, well, let's get this group together, bring it in, and really put this thing over the top, So sometimes that happens as well. That happened in McCartney's second or third recruiting class with that class with Embry and Ed Reinhardt and all those guys. So, they got them all in together, and then they got together and wanted to be together. So I don't know, kind of goes both ways, but at the end of the day, you gotta keep the recruiting going. And I don't know, that's part of the job as a coach now.
I would say going forward, I would value if they're going to have 2 transfer windows going forward, and there's been some discussions about them just going to 1 transfer window in the winter, which I think would be great just from a roster standpoint for these colleges to kind of figure out what they have.
Mm-hmm.
But if they end up having 2 transfer windows again next year, I think you've got to value what's in your current roster a little bit more than what they did. And it's not to say that,
in terms of what.
Just like in terms of the guys that left the program, I thought that there was more bad attrition given the fact that there's not a lot of starting caliber guys in that spring transfer window.
So are you saying that you got to work harder to keep these guys here? Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not just on CU, right? A lot of these guys, these players get impatient too. But you just like to see a touch more of the developmental factor in the program, I guess is what I'm getting to.
Yeah, and it's hard. You can't develop somebody that doesn't stick around. But I think you have if you're not going to have much quality in the second window, then you've got to be a little more shrewd about who you work harder to keep around.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
but I don't know that I'm not sure that would have helped us in the two positions we're talking about. Because Nakai Hill Green, there's nothing we're going to do about that, and then. Augustov, I guess he got that bag of money from somebody in Virginia.
Right? Yeah.
So that he had made his mind up, I think. So I don't know that there's anything he could have done to keep those guys around. We'll get back into the wailing and crying and tearing of clothes over Hood, I guess. But he was not going to be the answer.
We've done that already. We don't need to beat a dead horse.
Well, he's not going to be the answer this year at running back anyway, even if he stayed. So I don't know. It's like you look back. There's a handful of guys I wish we hadn't lost in this particular portal, but nobody that I'm just thinking back. Probably the biggest one to me is the edge kid that went home to Oklahoma State.
Tajay McCoy.
Yeah, Tajay McCoy. Aside from that. I don't know, pretty much a wash. I think we did pretty good. I think we've keep strengthened and continue to strengthen the offensive line. The defensive line looks pretty solid. And I think any team nowadays in modern college football with the portal and everything, every team outside of maybe 5 or maybe up to 10 is going to have positions like us with linebacker and tailback, running back that are unsettled. Nobody's going to have that kind of depth anymore, except that those top group of, you can't, back in the day, like Oklahoma would stockpile guys just to keep them from playing for other places. Well, ain't nobody sticking around for that anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Those guys are taking off and going somewhere where they can play the game. So, outside of a handful of teams, nobody can really say they're 3 deep anymore, because those, the number 3 guy leaves to go play somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, with running back specifically, at least you've got Draylon Miller and Cam Michael, a couple guys.
Yeah.
That I think you could put them in there, and you might be really surprised at the production you actually get out of them. But I would say Javion Thomas, the Cal running back transfer that went to UCLA after visiting Colorado, that was one of those pieces that was like, man.
Yeah,
that would have made me feel really good about that group.
And you get that guy in the BYU linebacker, and I'm feeling pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Tiger.
And
and where'd that guy go? He went to
Cal. Yeah.
I mean, and both of those choices are inexplicable to me. UCLA and Cal. I don't know, man. Had good luck. Good choice. Instead of being on TV every week, you'll be forgotten. So I don't know. People got to do what they got to do, I guess. But I don't know. It's the high school recruiting is more exciting this year, I think. These last 2 weekends, we've had a lot of guys in, and down the road, hopefully we start getting some commits from these guys, and we got some more good guys lined up still to come in coming weeks, and we'll probably get more. So it's still pretty good.
Yeah. And with those past couple weekends, you had a lot of talent rolling through Boulder. The number 2 ranked running back, RJ Edwards, 4 receivers, including Zedarian Morgan, a 5-star recruit, a couple tight ends. Gavin Mueller is set to announce this Wednesday around 2:20 p.m. Mountain Time. He's a tight end from Illinois. He's set to choose between Colorado, LSU, Notre Dame, and Wisconsin, has visited all those schools. I am not feeling confident enough to put a crystal ball prediction in here, but I think Colorado's in the mix there.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And, it's a pretty good mix to be in. And hopefully they showed him what they want to do with the tight end, and that's going to get him on board. I think he'd be an excellent talent. He's certainly big enough right now and athletic enough to make a difference almost immediately.
Yeah.
So hopefully on Wednesday we get good news there. And that would be a good start because that's another position that needs bodies. I'm obviously not going to help this year, but I think he's a guy. Tight end's a position. If you got the size, and you could play right away as a tight end. For the most part. I think that it's not like it used to be. 30 years ago, where tight end's got to be ready to do a lot of blocking right off the bat. But I think Gavin Mueller's a guy that could do that.
Yeah, and he's super raw too when it comes to football. Just an athletic freak, but last year was his first year playing organized football, and so he's got a pretty high ceiling. I think this would be a nice jumpstart to their prep class if he decides to pick the Buffs. Were there any of those offensive linemen that have rolled through here? Carr, Schmidt, Colajay, Felix Ojo apparently is not considering Colorado, according to Adam Gorney of Rivals. We've seen that play out. I haven't heard a ton of buzz with him though, so I definitely wouldn't necessarily refute. There was buzz with Seton kind of under the surface. I haven't got that with Ojo, but are there any of those O-line guys you really like that have come through?
Well, I think they all look great. Me even go back to early April when we had Johnny Jones in here, and he's an outstanding talent. He hasn't committed anywhere either. He's a starting from the first kind of offensive tackle, but both of the two kids that are Colorado connected, Deacon Schmidt and Brett Colajay, I think are kind of massive guys that could possibly get a look at tackle, certainly could play at guard, but they're an entirely different kind of guy that we've been bringing in from high school in there. So I like either one of those. Felix Ojo is the Seton of this class. So, I don't know how serious we are about getting him, but he showed up. So that's a possibility. And then I like this kid. I'm not sure. Ganiver. I don't know how to say his first name.
Ganiver.
Is that okay? And he's lesser. He's the lowest rated of any of the recruits that's come in the last couple of weeks. But I love what I see of him on film and his size. And it's funny, 6'4", 336. You kind of have an expectation of what you're going to see. And then I saw him on the pictures on campus. I was like, wow, that's a pretty lean 336. He's not got a big belly hang, and no big love handle, whatever. The kid looked pretty damn solid, So, and it was kind of funny though, standing next to Andre Giroud, he didn't look that big, but that's because Andre Giroud's a large human being. So I think any one of those are guys that could help us along our offensive line. So any one of those would be but really there isn't anybody in this group that I wouldn't like to have at any position,
and we can't forget about guys like Chauncey Gooden and Carday Smith that are in the program that I think are being really good players in a year or two.
Well, and Atias, I would group with those two as well. But then, like a guy like Dion Forkpa is a linebacker who's just outstanding and got more traditional linebacker size, about 230. So he'd be a great addition. Hard to go wrong with an RJ Edwards is your lead back from day one, based on what we got already in the program, I think.
Yeah.
So, Michael Welch might have established himself this year. So, I think lots of guys in here. There's lots of receivers, but I tell you, given the first couple of years under Coach Prime, I'm not even paying attention to receivers because whoever we put out there is going to be great. We get them like, here's three for the price of one. I don't know. They just seem to flock here, I guess.
Yeah.
Even without Shador here. So I don't worry about that too much. And then I like to see more defensive backs, but again, with Coach Prime running this team, you're not going to have a problem with defensive backs. So any one of those guys, and you go back to last week and a couple more receivers there, but just a lot of talent coming through, and Forkpa, I think, is the one, out of those, what is it? So offensive lineman was one, two, three, four, like 5 offensive linemen in the last month. If we get a couple of those, we're good. I think,
Yeah.
get two. I used to say like 3, maybe 4 a year out of high school. But the way things are now, I think if you get two a year out of high school, and you can keep them around, you ought to be okay.
Yeah.
If you get too many out of high school, you're going to lose a couple of them down the road anyway.
Right.
So I like every one of those, and any one of those offensive linemen that came through, commits, and it's great. Jake Cruel, I'd take Jake Cruel as a trade for Tajay McCoy.
He's going to be a stud in college.
Oh yeah. And so I think they're similar players, and he's got that kind of burst and what have you as well. So, Julius Miles is a different kind of a tight end, maybe than Mueller, taller and thinner, and so I don't know, just lots of exciting guys. Jordan Deck's a hell of a safety. You just go through this list, and everybody's a stud. So that it's not like the days of bringing in classes where half of them you're like you can't compete with this. You can't compete against other teams with this. Other teams can't compete with us if we start getting a bunch of guys like this.
Yeah, and that's one good thing to point out, William, is that Colorado's overall class rank on 24/7 Sports is number 2 in the Big 12, behind Texas Tech, who we've discussed on the show before, has had all kinds of crazy NIL money going out there right now. So Colorado really, from that standpoint, has done as well as anybody in this conference, and that includes the transfer class rank as well, number 2 in the Big 12.
Right.
So when you're doing that against the teams that you're playing the bulk of your games against, that's
right.
the key.
Right.
And we need to get back into doing some good Buff Stampede film room segments. But
yeah, for sure.
You remember back in the day, like our conversations would be like, don't like this guy. So we're just not going to do it. And people thought that we were always positive, liking everybody, right. But it was like, I'm not going to trash.
Right. Well, I told you years ago, I'm not going to get on here and talk nasty about a kid. If I don't like him, I don't want to talk about him.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, well, you think you like everybody. No, I don't like everybody. I just talk about the ones I like, and I don't talk about the others,
Yeah.
And so that's always going to be, I'm going to always be very reluctant to be harsh on any kind of a kid. I guess maybe by the time you're a senior and you're 22, you're not a kid anymore, but still, I think we just try to be honest about what we got. And I look down this list, and there's just really nobody that you can't get excited. If you can't get excited about the last 2 weekends of kids coming through, I don't know what to tell you. I could see, people like, well, I wish we'd have more commits, but whatever, give it time and let's see what happens.
Jack Hystera.
I have to tell just look at it. I don't have any inside information on this, but I'd be shocked if Deacon Schmidt doesn't come here. The guy comes here every damn week.
Well, I think with a lot of these guys, and you could throw Breck Collegier in there, maybe Carr. There's that big contingency of IMG guys looking at Colorado now.
Right.
I think a big part of this is Colorado just showing it on the field this fall in terms of because I think Gunnar White has done a really good job of recruiting.
Yeah.
There is, I think, with some of these guys, especially when you have big NIL offers from the SEC coming your way, if you're going to stay close to home, you want to at least see some proof of concept out there, because the O-line was better last year, but it still struggled overall. So I think that is where this fall's performance, and again, you're going to have some of these guys verbally commit somewhere else, but there's no national letter of intent anymore. It's not going to happen until December that anything's official. So
right.
I that's my gut. That just is how I feel about those in-state tied offensive linemen, is that there has to be a little bit more certainty about how solidified this O-line group is going forward.
Well, I think we're still in the proving stage in a larger sense too. The national story is going to be, can they win without Shador and Travis Hunter and all those wide receivers, right? So that's going to be a question mark to people because people don't, well, aside from that running back and that linebacker, most people want to go where you can win games. Other people want to go to UCLA and Cal, but people don't want to come here and especially transfers. If I got one more year to play, I want to play for something, right? I mean, I want to play to get in the NFL, but they also want to play to win something. So it's going to be important for us to get out there and get 9 or 10 wins again this year and show everybody that we don't need to start over rebuilding, that we just reload. We are going to be up there every single year. And I think we'll show that. Will we show a good offensive line? I'll believe it when I see it. Just done even having positive thoughts about the offensive line at CU until I see one. I don't give a damn. They get, go out and get 5 best offensive linemen in the NFL, and I won't believe it until I see it happen on the field in black and gold.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And it's kind of ridiculous at this point, get some goddamn coaches to get the job done. For the love of Pete, man, I'm sick of hearing about not enough talent here, not enough talent there. There's been enough talent to have decent offensive lines, but the damn clowns that they keep hiring aren't getting the job done. So, I'm sick of. Okay, I'm gonna breathe into a paper bag here. It just frustrates me, every single year to see the same damn thing, and
Let me ask you this question: how much will it help the O-line if Caden Salter is the dual threat quarterback that he was 2 years ago at Liberty when he was, what are they in the Conference USA? He was the offensive player of the year in that conference. How much pressure does that take off the O-line when you've got this balanced offense and you've got a legit playmaker that just kind of gets the mojo of that offense working and kind of builds those offensive linemen's confidence up?
Well, you named the wrong guy, because that comes down to the dude calling the plays. You got to call the plays that take advantage of that guy's skills first, right? We had 3 games last year where we lined up and we dedicated ourselves to running the ball. We did it damn well, and then we stopped doing it. So, I can't remember his name. I want to call him up, Chuck. Whatever.
Pat Shermer.
Yeah, that's close to Chuck, isn't it? Shermer up.
Not even close.
But he's got to call the damn plays that give whichever quarterback is playing the opportunity to use those skills, right? And you got to have some kind of coherent frickin' scheme that helps the offensive line do their job too. So I guess I was kind of harsh on the offensive line coaches when I should have had a little heat and spit for the offense coordinator too. Stop calling stupid plays, and I guess we'll find out this year how much the last couple of years was Shador gets to change the play. And we'll find out, I guess, what Shermer really wants to do this year. But it certainly helps an offensive line. It helps an offense in general if you got a quarterback that can do those things, but you've got to call the plays that put him in that situation. And he's also got to have a running back. I think you got to have a running back that's a legitimate threat to make those plays work too. Because if he just starts keeping the ball every single time, then there's not an option, and everybody just keys on him.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a completeness to the offense. We did find last year. Without a really complete offense, with some outstanding talents at wide receiver and quarterback. So I don't know. I think the pieces are there. I just really think the big question mark this year is coaching.
I was as critical of Dallin Hayden's play last year as anybody, right?
Yeah.
You listen to the podcast?
Yeah.
I have a feeling he's going to have a really good season for Colorado. I've really enjoyed everything I've seen out of him, and it's not just the 2 runs in the spring game, but that touchdown run he made somebody miss.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's what we wanted to see.
A hip shift and a change of direction and a little wiggle to make people miss.
Yeah. I wonder how much that high ankle sprain he had last year.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Him.
And the crappy offense and whatever. So I think, hopefully that he's the kind of guy where Marshall Faulks, remains to be seen how well Marshall Falk could teach, because what Marshall Falk did was because of otherworld talent, right? Now, those kids he's coaching don't have that talent. Probably, we think, so it'll come down to what he could teach them and get the most out of their ability, and that's really what coaching's about, is getting the most out of every kid that they can, or helping the kid get the most out of what he has. So I think there's a lot of question marks still. I'm still sticking on the 9 wins because for this season, but there's a lot of question marks, how same thing with Giroud, I mean, he was, one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL for 10 years. Can he teach that to other dudes? Now I think Giroud's got some guys that have his level of talent, in Gooden and some of these transfers and whatever. So we'll see what he's able to do with better talent. So should be interesting.
What were your thoughts on Jack Histera returning to Colorado as a transfer commit from Utah State?
Well, his uncle, Dave Histera, was a tight end the first year I got to CU, and he's one of my favorite people of all time and one of my favorite tight ends I've ever seen play. He had a little wiggle to him. It was kind of fun to watch, but that was 82, 83, whatever like that. So, all the kids watching the show today who I don't know how old everybody is out there, but they don't remember Dave Histera probably too much. And then I didn't even know that his brother was on the team, to be honest with you. I don't mean any disrespect by that, but I think Jack Histera is a guy who adds something to the team based on what he's done the last couple of years. He's not going to be, one of your top 4 receivers, but he's certainly a guy who can get open and make plays and that you can count on, I don't know, kind of makes me think of a Scotty McKnight, kind of a guy that can sit down in zones and find holes in the defense or whatever. So what the hell? There's no shortage of scholarships, so there's no reason not to bring it back. There's no downside to it whatsoever. And some people are like, blah blah. Well, what, you just reporting that a guy's coming back? I don't understand some people.
Well, he spent time in Boulder, so he is very familiar with it. So, and he had to have researched the situation enough, like you said.
Yeah.
He's not going to project as the top 4 guy. So if he's committing here, it's for a certain role, and you would hope that, and you would think that he does understand that. And like you said, they're not going to get up to 85 scholarships as it is. So no issue there.
105 now, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's still, that is likely to happen, but there's the whole walk-on side of things. The courts, it's still so fluid at this point. Everybody just wants to assume it's going to be something. So you have to kind of plan for that as an athletic department. I ran into Reggie Calhoun Jr., the NIL director for CU, late during spring ball. And it was like, how do you even keep up with this stuff? And he says, you gotta check every day. I mean, that's how quickly this NIL or eligibility and just all that stuff right now, roster limits. It's so much in flux at this point, but I think that Colorado's never gonna, maybe with walk-ons they'll get to the 105, but scholarship wise, that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, right. And I don't think Coach Prime would ever want to, because he's careful about who he brings in here in terms of not poisoning the well, with bad attitudes and what have you.
Yeah, I think it should be universal across the board to be at 80 scholarships, and then you can have 25 walk-ons and be at that 105. I think 85 is just too many scholarship allotments now with kids. They don't have the patience to wait long enough to get playing time. Like you mentioned, there'd be programs like Oklahoma that would stockpile these guys back in the day. Right. I mean, we're so far from those days. Well, and you see a guy like Noah King, who I did a story on the other day. He spent 3 months in Manhattan, and he's switching schools. So you can't. I don't think you really want to invest in 105 scholarship guys, because they're not going to stick around.
Well, I feel like 3 months in Manhattan is like a 4-year stint in the Department of Corrections, but maybe that's just me. It's like, hey, I got a chance to get the hell out of this crap town, so I'm out of here. And just so we're clear, everybody, we don't mean the Big Apple. We ain't talking that Manhattan. Yeah, I think, when you had 85 scholarships and everybody was worried if you had 85, a third, maybe not quite a third, but man, maybe, I don't know, a third was true freshmen every year, and they weren't going to play, or a third was at least guys that were not going to be, uh, um, impactful that particular season, because
Yeah.
they were developmental guys. Well, I guess I could be cynical and say in Colorado's case, 85% of the 85 were not going to be impactful that year.
Yeah.
Man, where's the beat?
I appreciate the lack of patience to win right away,
Yeah.
but then there's kind of that football developmental fan side of me just that likes to see these guys develop over the course of 4 or 5 years. And it's not just Colorado. I mean, this is happening everywhere. It's college football in general. I guess I shouldn't even put that on Coach Prime and the Buffs. It just,
I think we'll keep more guys here under Coach Prime and his coaching staff because their kids are going to see that those guys care about them and can develop them. You got Jordan Seaton going into his
second year.
Last year was his first. Wow, seems like he'd been here longer than that.
He's got a big personality, so you always notice him.
I was trying to think back to the year before. I was like, no, I guess he wasn't out there. It's like it just seems like he's been here a long time. Last season sort of went on for a long time, but like him coming back in that position.
I remember the day, like, because it was the Friday, the end of the early signing period for his class. And of course, Jordan hadn't signed his letter of intent, but that was the day where, he was hanging out with Bucky down in Miami, and these videos are going viral. And I'm in Costco trying to buy Christmas stuff for our family, and I'm kind of huddled in the corner breaking that news. That was not that long ago. It seems like he's been around for a long time, but that was a funny day. Just he told us in the press conference that the reason it took so long is because he didn't have internet access, and it's like, come on, 2025, you can find internet access.
No,
he's a funny kid, though. He really is.
Yeah, and I think it sometimes it feels like it's been a long time that Coach Prime has been here too. There's been so much happen and so much drama, and by drama I don't mean necessarily bad, but good and bad. And ups and downs, and like that first year was kind of crazy every week, and then last year with the Heisman, and it's just and going to the bowl game and everything else. It just so much has happened in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It feels hard to believe that all that got packed into 2 years, sometimes.
It is, yeah. And these off seasons are so quick now because let's be honest, like Colorado has not gone to a bowl game for much of this century. So you're ending that season in late November, and you're having to wait a very long time. Like you said, there was the Heisman, there was the Alamo Bowl, and then
the contract waiting, and
and transfer portal. I mean, it makes it because you're constantly following things as a college fan. On some level, it's kind of fun, I think, from a day-to-day standpoint, to be a college football fan right now, because there's always something to be paying attention to.
I don't know if I'd say it on that level. I'd say a CU fan, because every day in Coach Prime world, there's something. If you're the Oklahoma State fan or Kansas fan or whatever, they probably don't have that level of excitement that we do, because every single day in Coach Prime world seems like there's something that's could happen. And I don't think they get that necessarily. When that fat bastard jumped in the pool up there for the floaty quacks, ain't nobody sitting around every day wondering what that fat piece of crap is going to do, because he doesn't do anything. He just, was handed his Lamborghini and his bag of money, and he hands out his bricks of money,
Yeah. Well,
it'll pay for all of his medical bills. Oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to talk about violence. I'm supposed to be peaceful, and so
you do you.
Let's talk about.
I got to say though, like when I saw that video of Dan Lanning, like,
oh my god! Well,
of course, I thought about you.
I didn't know what was coming when somebody put it up and I started watching. I'm like, it panned around all these pretty girls sitting around a swimming pool. I'm like, what? Okay, what's this got to do with CU football? And then there was a kid sitting there, and I was like, I don't know who the kid is. And he starts talking. And then he said, "You ready to do this?" And then they turned it, and I'm like, "Oh man, this freaking beluga whale takes his shirt off, you know? And there's this big white blob in the camera." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, that should come with one of those warnings, like, do not watch this if you're eating lunch or something, you know."
All right.
Let's move. You like beluga whale, huh? Let's talk Sean Myers and Andre Roy.
Yeah. So Colorado is going to be hosting a linebacker.
Hey, when you play that segment, can you insert a picture of an actual beluga whale?
I'm not aiding and abetting here. I am just merely a bystander for all this.
Got me out of my bad mood though, so you know.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
North Alabama transfer line. Linebacker transfer Sean Myers.
Lock it up.
He is coming to Boulder on Tuesday, and he put up some stats there at the FCS level. This isn't quite the starting caliber guy you're looking at there, but I think he can come in and provide some competition there.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, who knows? I mean, I think. Who says he's not? Who says he can't be? I don't know. I think he showed some things at that lower level that I think are interesting, and he can run and got decent size, and so I think he adds to the mix and creates more. Well, I mean, he hasn't committed yet. I'm talking as if he's committed. I hope he does, because I'd like to have him on the team. I'd like to have another linebacker in that room, pushing all those guys. And all those guys need to step up a little bit and fall, but they got a lot of time to get there. So I think Sean Myers is a good addition to the team if we can get him to commit. Anybody that's played a lot of linebacker at the college level, even if it's not at this level, I think it is somebody and done it pretty well. So he would be an exciting addition to me, and I like that we got him coming in. He's I'd rather have the BYU guy, but he wanted to go play Pee Wee football at Cal, so I don't know what to say.
And a new offensive line transfer target has emerged. Andre Roy Jr. He was on campus this past weekend, a transfer. He's from the Baltimore area, went to Maryland, and kind of venturing out, it looks like, to play out some more of his eligibility. Any thoughts here? He
started 7 games at left tackle for Maryland last year, and the ACC is a pretty good conference. So I think that he would be a super addition. I mean, will he be fighting for that right tackle spot? I don't know. I think that he certainly is a huge upgrade over Vertus Shelby if he's the backup left tackle. And I think he's got 3 years left, or 2 years, probably 2 years left, 2 to 3 to play 2 maybe. I think he was a redshirt sophomore. What's that leave, 2?
He's 2, 3. He's got 3 years left.
Okay, and so I think he's like 6'6", 300, and has got some real playing experience at our level. So I think he's super exciting if we can get him to pop and become a buff. Anybody that started at the P4 level, and Maryland's a decent program, so I think he'd be a great addition. And people want to bring in another tackle, and quite frankly, this is as good as it's going to get in the portal. I think for the most part, for an offensive tackle,
Yeah, Roy's actually ranked in the top 10 of available guys, regardless of position. And this was actually a story that was done a while ago, because Hakeem Williams was on there, and he's committed to Colorado since then. So, again, it kind of goes back to an earlier point of we're just not seeing as many guys that are established hitting the portal this time of year.
And so, Roy has got upside, man. I mean, he has not reached his potential. So, everything for him is ahead of him, and so he'd be an exciting addition to the team. And, I keep looking through the list of guys we got. We're going to put a huge offensive line out there, and this guy would be a very athletic addition to it. So that'd be fun.
The Buffs targeted a new 2026 quarterback recruit, Luke Fahey from Mission Viejo, and 2026 quarterback recruit Oscar Rios is still set to visit CU in June. So that's kind of where it's looking at there in terms of 2026 high school quarterback recruiting. It might be challenging because of Julian Lewis coming in. That's
Right.
maybe a tougher sales pitch
Maybe
this cycle.
Yeah, but you look at all the top schools, and they generally, they get a 4-star or 5-star quarterback, and they sign another one next year. I mean, that's just how it is anywhere you go at this level.
Yeah, that's true.
If you want to go to a team that wants to compete for the playoffs, at any rate, if you want to go to Cal, yeah, I'm going to beat that horse until there's nothing left. But but if you're a top quarterback, you're going to compete against top quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only CU that for the last 10 years hasn't had any quarterbacks. Everybody else has got them. So
I did a story recently, 10 buffs that appeared to boost their stock this spring, and kind of base that on what we saw during the open stuff, during interviews, as well as source information. I mentioned Dallin Hayden earlier. He was one of the guys on that list that I felt boosted his stock. Is there any guys this spring that you felt were big risers just based on everything you observed?
Well, I mean, the most obvious one to me, based on everything that I've heard and seen, is Quincy Wiggins. So,
yeah,
we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that. But if they're talking about making him the dot guy, that means they have a special role for him in mind, and it's not going to be hand on the ground all the time either. But he's a guy that's certainly got the body to be something very special. I think. What's I looking at? I think both Savell Smalls and Zach Atkins were impressive in spring. And I think Savell Smalls is starting to complete his game. I think Zach Atkins showed he can catch the ball out in the field. I think Zarian McGill came on at center as the spring went on. I think Monty got better as the spring went on, and so Zy Chrysler looked fine. I think if we're talking like boosting stock, I guess the guy probably most more than anybody on the team except for Quincy Wiggins, probably RJ Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
As a defensive back,
especially with Colton Hood now transferring too.
Yeah.
Because I know that's your favorite topic.
Well, okay. See, now you push the button. My favorite topic is the beluga whale up in Oregon. But RJ Johnson, I think, gives us some flexibility and can play multiple positions in the secondary. And so he's a guy I think that really helped himself. Ben Finson, how about him? There's a guy that really helped himself this spring. So quite a few guys I think got better and showed something this spring. And then we'll wait and see what they do for the rest of the offseason to come back in August. I think that London Merritt and Alexander McPherson both showed something at edge. So lots of guys out there. I think that Anquan Barnes had a hell of a spring. I think, and really started. If Anquan Barnes and Jaheim Otis reach their potential with along with Amari McNeil and some of those other guys, it may not matter who plays on offense because nobody can score. And
Martavius French is going to have a nice season.
Yeah, he looked really good at linebacker. We just need to find that other one. I wanted to see more from Hughes, but everybody's going to come out in August and see what they got. So I liked what I saw from Atia playing center as a backup there. I thought looking at going the other way. I think Chauncey Gooden and Cardi Smith both need a little more time, but I didn't see anything that made me feel that they weren't going to be superstars down the road. They're just true freshmen, So lots of guys I thought stood out this spring. I don't tend to watch the receivers too much, but just a lot of guys I thought. Dallin Hayden stood out. So I don't know.
It's going to be a deep rotation there. They're going to be. It's not going to be like last year when you're your primarily 10 personnel, and you kind of know
Right.
who most of those 4 receivers are going to be on every play. Certainly Dallin or Draylon Miller got some reps in there, Terrell Timmons at times last year as well. But I really just don't think there's a whole lot separating so many of these receivers on this
Right.
team.
And there's so much talent in there. You got to find ways to use a Draylon Miller, Cameron Michael, Joseph Williams. Joseph Williams, now that I think about it, stood out to me all through spring, and has a lot of the same sort of attributes that Will Shepherd had last year. And then Isaiah Hart is another guy. You got to find a way to use that guy. So there's some really talented athletes in that room. Quentin Gibson, we didn't even talk about him. Cornell Farrakhan looked good. So those are guys you got to find. We talked about using some of those guys at the running back position. These are some guys you got to find a way to get the ball in their hands, maybe in some creative ways. I think that, those kinds of things like, quick pitches, and if they're lined up at a wing or something like that, quick throws and whatever. So, I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Brett Yormark signed a 3-year contract extension as the Big 12 commissioner, and that goes through the 2029-30 academic year. So kind of falls in line, or does fall in line, with Coach Prime's new contract with the Buffaloes. There are times, William, in the last year and in booking travel for this year, I kind of miss being able to go out to California, the Pacific Northwest, but to have a commissioner leading the conference that has a backbone and seems progressive. It's the right decision. Colorado obviously had to make that decision. It's still a little bit sad to kind of just think about what happened with the Pac-12. And those were some fun road trips, but Brett Yormark is somebody that you feel confident in following his leadership.
Yeah. And I think that's good. I think we're in the right place where we need to be at this point. And the other one just sort of burned to the ground anyway. So I think that's a good outcome. And I don't know, not a heck of a lot more to say about it, but it's nice to have stability at the conference level, and I think we're going to continue to dominate this conference. So
I guess the bottom line is I miss being able to eat an entire crab on Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco every once in a while. Yeah, that was pretty nice.
Yeah,
or going for a jog along Manhattan Beach. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but I don't mind the ass kickings that we're not getting. So that's more fun,
Yeah. But let's close out with just a quick comment here with Shedeur Sanders. It sounds like did you have something else you wanted to talk about?
No, I was just saying that the old man's bladder is getting to the limit. So we got
Okay. Final topic.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders seemed like he did pretty well. And this is not real football. You're not comparing this to the stuff they're going to be doing during training camp as they're deciding this quarterback competition. But the early reports have been good there, which is good. I think the people that out there in Cleveland are, I don't know about all of them, but some of them seem to be warming up to him.
Well, and I don't give a damn what, we had that multiple thread with the Cleveland Browns fans and our fans. And I stopped going to it after I told their moderator to shut his pie hole in nicer terms. But I just make friends everywhere I go, Adam. That's all I do, brother. But I don't I guess we've been watching Shedeur, and all I've ever seen the guy do is succeed. He just goes out there, whether it's at Jackson State, whether it's Colorado, whatever, and he gets the job done and he succeeds and he makes plays and makes things happen, and did it without an offensive line, did it without running game, and so it's not surprising to me that he looked good out there, and I think he's not a guy, he's not a guy we're putting on the pads changes things to him, because he's been hit, he knows what that's like. He's not going to all of a sudden get shell shocked because there's some guy come bearing down on him, because we've seen him stand there knowing he's going to get whacked and still throw the right ball. So I think it's no surprise to me. The guy's a first round pick, and we can go back through this whole damn thing again. NFL's a bunch of dumbasses, and they can say all they want about this, that, or the other thing. But in a couple of years, it's going to be clear that they all screwed up. And I think it's too bad. I think it's too bad that he's got to play for the Cleveland underwear stains, but that's where he got picked. So that's what he's got to do.
So I'm going to let you go so you can go to the bathroom and then stop by your mailbox. And if there's an RSVP in there, an invitation to join Dylan Gabriel and Dan Lanning at a pool party, are you going to RSVP yes or no?
Not without a defense lawyer. Not without a defense lawyer.
All right, fair enough, William.
I think I'm a good foot taller than either one of them, I think.
All right. Well, that's a good. We spend more time talking about the Oregon Ducks than maybe any podcast outside of Eugene, but it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun.
Yeah. So and I don't know. They say mockery is the sincerest form of flattery, but that ain't it. I ain't flattering neither. None of those some bitches. So.
Well, we will keep tabs on Colorado's recruiting efforts. Again, we recapped all that if you missed it earlier, and stay tuned to BuffStampede.com because there's never a dull moment in Colorado Buffalo land right now, and there's a lot of recruiting news. So I hope you guys are checking it out.
Yeah,
William, always appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody out there for tuning in.
You ain't seen bad yet, but it's coming.